Also, as you see right here, it's got the controller, and the controller is basically a Windows system server. It runs Server 2003. And it has a separate bay of RAID protected disks. We'll talk more about the file area as we go forward. And then it comes with 2 RDUs, but it's expandable to 10 RDUs. Okay, so pretty big configuration gap or spread there. I think as far as I know, you guys are mostly interested in the Model 3s and the Model 100s, or the Model 30s,
right.
The 3s and the 30s. Not sure you're going to sell a lot of the Model 100s. More for people who want to keep a lot of their data online and have it rapidly accessible, and want to make use of that landing zone, which is 9 terabytes. That's the managed file area that I talk about. So those guys have, huge data migrations that they want to archive, on a daily, monthly, weekly basis, something along those lines. But the Model 3 and the Model 30 generally suit most of the customer's needs. So I think that that's really what you're looking at there. Just to give you kind of a comparison, we'll talk more about why this is true. All of the data in each of these systems shares the same software, and in that software is SQL Server standard. And so because of SQL Server, it does limit the number of files that they'll process. And so we've got about 70 million with the Model 3, 293 million with the Model 30, and then well over 1 billion with the Model 100.
And that's the limitation of SQL?
That is the limitation of how we index the files,
right.
And you'll understand a little bit more about that as I go forward.
Sure.
Okay. So using a Model 100 picture here, because all the pieces are separated, data comes in from the network into the data preservation system, which basically is the Windows controller, or the controller with running the Windows system server, and the InfiniVault software. There is a protected file area. Again, we'll talk more about ingestion and how that works as we go forward. So basically, once the data gets into the file area, it's then started to process out to the cartridges themselves, the removable disk. So we'll call that online when it's in the file area, nearline when it's in the disk. Although you hear us in support, we'll kind of mix the 2 terms, online and nearline. And then when you remove the cartridge from the system, we'll use the term offline there. Okay, so the infinite capacity really has a reference to the capacity that you can remove. That's that removable infinite offline capacity. As files are moved to the file area, we do have automatic file retention management. That's really kind of the secret sauce of the InfiniVault, is that file retention, file management, file movement that we do. It also do deduplication, single instancing, whichever one you want to call it, compression, encryption, and then automatically protect the data as it's moved to cartridge. So a little bit about the InfiniVault connections. We've got 2 GigE network connections. Those network connections can be used to segregate management from data traffic, or they can be used in aggregation for fault tolerance, failover. We'll talk a little bit more about that. SAS interface between the controller and the file area. And then again, the serial ATA connection between the file area and the removable disk unit. Obviously in the Model 3, there's no external SATA connection necessary, that's all internal, as is the SAS connection. So sorry, there's no connectors to play with and fiddle with and so on today. So in terms of how to get it unpacked, and the Model 3 and the Model 100 are built for rack mount. They're very noisy, so they're cooling those the file area disks, the RAID protected file area disks. The user's guide has really good instructions with pictures. So it's not the kind of thing that I would normally go over in training, because you guys can just RTFM and pretty much get it. Even the bit that I'll show you today is pretty self-explanatory in the user's guide. Okay, so installing the InfiniVault, I'll break out a second here because I want to show you. It's time. I'll show you the pre-installation checklist that we put together for you guys if you're doing an install. This is something that you can give your customers. It gives them everything that they need to know and everything that they need to have prepared for you guys before you walk in to do the install. IP addresses, if you're gonna set up a dual configuration, an Ethernet configuration, subnet mask, domain policy information. It talks about physical space, power, cooling, which not really necessary. We strongly recommend that the user creates a separate group policy object within their domain. We've had, probably I'd say a good number of our support calls on InfiniVault have had to do with, just joining the domain type issues, or having additional software pushed to the InfiniVault system, causing like SQL Server updates, which really messes with our software, and and just various things like that. So, pushing password policies, and so on. So the InfiniVault was meant to be a closed system. We recommend that they not even install virus protection software on the InfiniVault. That doesn't necessarily sit well with a lot of our customers, but again, to test all of the different virus protection software packages that are out there would just be, just this huge exponentially increasing matrix. And the nature of virus protection software too is so invasive that we really recommend against it. Now, that said, we do have some customers who have done it, and they're running successfully, but it's just, again, it's a kind of an oddball set. We've got like Norton Utilities, who uses that? And just some really obscure packages that are actually in use. So I guess if you've got a customer who's insisting on running virus protection software and pushing that onto the InfiniVault, give us a call first, and we'll do what we can to kind of help you test that out first to make sure that it's not going to give us any problems. But in general, like I said, creating a separate group policy object for the InfiniVault is really recommended. It'll help, circumvent a lot of different calls. So we've got instructions here on how to create that for the user. Again, so that they've got everything prepared before you even walk on site. We've got, just a little chart here that they can fill out, primary contacts, secondary contacts, and so on and so forth. Tells them how the InfiniVault comes preset up from the factory. This one comes named InfiniVault 3, just so you know. So XX here is just a single digit 3. InfiniVault 30 or InfiniVault 100. They can change the name of that. That's fine. Most customers you'll find don't change the name. It's kind of odd. Question here for their dual port configuration, if they want to go ahead and do that. I think really the configuration on the InfiniVault is pretty simple. It's really more in their router and their network setup than it is on the InfiniVault, but it's always nice to know that that's how they're going to use it, whether it's going to be in workgroup or domain mode. Email server notification. Once they add it to their DNS and SMTP server, put all that information in there, what happens is nightly we get a condensed set of logs called auto support. So auto support will send ProStore directly, ProStore support, just general health information about the system. So I'd say in most of our support calls, we know about the problem before they know about the problem. So because of the auto support, it is, you can disconfigure it or unconfigure it, whatever the right word is. It requires a call to ProStore customer support to do that. So it is set up automatically.
And if it can't route out, if the environment doesn't allow for that, does it cause, should we go through
Yeah,
and
there are a
disconnect it?
couple instances that'll cause us some problems.
So we should turn that off if the environment doesn't allow your outgoing
Yeah, you
health
can.
information?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't find that the majority
No.
of the installs, they don't mind
Nope.
that going on? Okay.
No. The only, the only things that we've run into are, a couple of government potential customers. They tested the system but never ended up purchasing it. Because in the government, it's basically everybody purchases the same thing or nobody purchases it. So they were interested in the fact that they could turn it off. We did turn it off for their test, but that was
Well, I'm
really.
understanding you say that if we install it in an environment
Yeah.
that will not allow routing out
Yep.
of that mail, we should turn it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that requires a call to...
You just call us.
Okay.
So do you guys have to do, you guys have to make the change, or can the end user make the change, or?
The end user can't make the change. And we'll get into this a little bit more. We also have the ability to, it's not something that we publicize to users very often, but we have the ability to, if a customer allows us remote access into the box, remote login access, we have the ability to log in. It's a very safe, randomly generated password that we can use, and that's what we would have to do. We'd have to remote log in.
And what scheme is that?
And specific, I'm sorry?
And what do they need to allow? What port do they need for an inbound connection?
Just remote login capability,
On
period.
port 23, port 80? They usually will not just open it up wide open. They would sort
Right,
of selectively...
right. I don't know, but I've never had to have a user specify a port before.
Okay. And are you